The beginning of the race went really well for me. I had kind of turned out to be a rather volatile mix of dogs. I had 11 young rowdy males and 3 females, and the dogs were charging, and I think I had some of the fastest run times early in the race. And the trail conditions were beautiful, no problems, really nice weather. It just kind of, I think, lulled everybody into complacency somewhat, you know, and then the last half of the race we got into some real nasty weather. Well, the first real nasty stuff we got into was around American Summit. That's coming into Eagle, and you're on the Taylor Highway. It was blizzard, had a hard time seeing my lead dogs, and it was flat light, so you couldn't really see the definition of the trail, and it was you know, just all blown over. We had a side wind coming at us. It was about 0 or 10 below, and it felt like a 30-40 mile an hour side wind coming at us and just kicking up a lot of fresh snow. And I got stuck into right at the very top. It kind of wraps around this corner, and it was totally drifted over. And the dogs we just kind of hit this wall of snow. They couldn't see anything. There was no markers. There was no discernible trail. And it was just kind of like mountain to the left, mountain drop to the left, and the wind come from the right, trying to push the dogs down the mountain. And they the dogs kind of shut down a little bit there. When they get into really severe weather, they sort of have this survival instinct where they'll just kind of burrow in, and that's it. You know, it's just something kind of clicks in their head, and I had real trouble getting through there. I had to kind of just push my sled forward about 6 or 7 feet, and then kind of pull the dogs like 6 or 7 feet at a time, and I couldn't tell how far this drifted area actually lasted, and it took us about an hour to go about 30 yards, and you know, meanwhile we're getting pelted from the side by all this snow, and it was pretty cold. The next real crazy part happened around Birch Creek, which is between Circle and Central, and it was quite cold. It was about 50 below, 45 to 50 below, and I'm going up the river. It's like 1 in the morning, and all of a sudden I can see like about this football field length, bank to bank of steam coming up. So I knew it was all overflowing there. And they kind of warned us about that earlier at the drivers' meeting. And here out in the middle is a light floundering around and just kind of doing circles, and it just didn't make sense, you know, like, well, what's going on here? And as I get closer, I can see this figure of something. I couldn't tell what it was. It looked like a snow machine at first. It was abandoned right where the overflow started. And I got right up to the edge of it, and I can see it was Dallas Seavey's sled. And which didn't make sense, you know, like, why is he and his dogs detached from his sled, and his sled is buried in this overflow, you know, which once you stir up overflow, it can freeze really quick. And, you know, I was worried his sled was going to freeze in there, and he had let his dogs, he had apparently got out onto this semi-frozen overflow, and then it just gave way and they sunk in. And he detached his dogs and just muscled them all the way through this overflow to the other side, kind of got them on the bank, secured on the other side, and then was coming back to get his sled. And, you know, he said, I'm in a bad way. It's, you know, I'm soaked up to my waist, and I've been wallowing around in this for about an hour, and asked if I had any extra gear, and that he needed a hand. And I was able to get around it on the right, way up high on the bank. I got over onto the right-hand bank and was able to get up on dry ground and get over to where his dogs were. And he was all iced up. His outer layers were frozen like a chunk of plywood. I wound up putting them on my sled, and they just stayed level like this. I strapped him on my sled after we got him off him, but I helped him get undressed, and he had some extra socks and some hand warmers, and you know, he was pretty shook up. He said, "Yeah, this is the worst I've ever had mush dogs in," and he was kind of scared. And, you know, I just said, "Just forget about the race. I'm gonna stay right with you. We'll just work together. If you get too cold, we'll stop and build a fire. Otherwise," we were about 25, 30 miles from the checkpoint. I said, "We should probably just keep going, just stay active, keep your body heat up and keep going." And I helped him get his dogs untangled and get in his. He actually had one of these sit-down sleds, and we got him into a sleeping bag where he could sit on his tail dragger and just ride that way. And we stuffed the bag full of heat packs, and I gave him my over mitts, my big warm beaver over mitts, because his mitts were soaked. And we just kind of stuck together, and every mile or so I was ahead of him, and every mile I'd just stop and ask if he was okay, and you know, we just kind of worked through it, and eventually he warmed up, and we made it into the checkpoint okay. Well, for me, it was probably a couple-hour delay. You know, just stop there, getting him situated, and just doing a lot of stopping and starting. But I, you know, at that point, you just kind of forget about the race, yeah. You know, and it was just like, this is a dire situation, and I wanted to make sure that he was okay and that we just got him safely to the next checkpoint. The race is earlier in the season when there's less sunlight and it's typically colder. It all depends on the year and the given weather conditions. But the Yukon River section we run on the Iditarod, or on the Quest, is narrower, and the ice tends to jumble up a lot. On the Iditarod, we're on the lower part of the Yukon. It's wider, and it's generally flat and easy going, but we can get some really nasty jumbo ice we have to negotiate through. And this American Summit is pretty wicked. Eagle Summit, there's nothing like that on the Iditarod. It's extremely steep. And it's the way we go from Whitehorse to Fairbanks. It's late in the race, so the dogs are tired, you're tired. So it's a real challenge. Then actually, there was no drama on Rosebud Summit, which is after Eagle Summit, but that could be really nasty. You're above tree line for about 4 or 5 miles, just running right along the top of this knife edge ridge that's totally exposed, and it looks like, to me, if it blew up there, it'd be pretty nasty. And then the checkpoint distances are further apart, so you don't have that kind of security in the back of your mind, like, okay, I just have 20 miles to go to the next checkpoint, or 30 or 40. It's like, I've got 80 or 200, you know, to go to the next checkpoint. So you see a lot of teams that scratch because they get to a checkpoint, and like I say, it's not like 30 or 40 miles to the next checkpoint where maybe they could kind of limp along. It's like 200, you know, or whatever it is, 80 to 200 miles to the next checkpoint. So it's more tempting for teams to scratch in the Quest for sure. The guy leading the race, kind of the rabbit, was Hugh Neff, and he was way ahead of us, and we almost just sort of rode him off because he had such a big lead. And leaving Central, they said that they told us, based on the trackers, that he was stuck up on Eagle Summit, and he had trouble on Eagle Summit in years past. So, but actually, right when we left, they said that he had gotten over, and I don't know how that transpired, but as I was approaching Eagle Summit, another guy, Dan Caduce, came down off the summit back towards Central, and we crossed paths, and he said, "Oh, it's terrible up there, you can't see anything. My dog spun around on me 3 times. They couldn't find the trail. Hugh Neff is stuck up there. His hands are frozen, and I wouldn't even try it. You know, and I almost just kind of went on his word and spun around there, you know, but because his team was really strong, he was coming on really strong. His team was way faster than mine. He had a bigger team. I had only 8 dogs, and my dogs were getting kind of tired, and so I honestly really had my doubts that we were going to make it up, but I said, no, we got to give it a try. And we broke out of tree line, and I had never done it this way, but it's about a half a mile straight, really, really steep climb up this mountain. And it was colder then. It was colder than American Summit. It was about 20 below, and we just had this driving wind coming right at us. It was about, I don't know, they said 40-mile-an-hour wind or so, and it totally blew the trail over. You could see the markers, but the dogs don't really go off the markers. They key off what they can smell and what they can see on the ground. So they really couldn't see anything. They couldn't decipher the trail, and my leaders spun once left, once to the right, another time to the left, and I realized that the only way I was going to get up the mountain was if I played lead dog. And so I took a spare tug line, a spare rope, attached it to my leader's tug line, run it through his collar, so I had good control, kind of lined all the dogs out, make sure the sled was straight, and I just said, okay, we're going to just walk up this mountain. And I said, all right, and kind of pulled the dogs a little bit, and we went about 10-15 feet, and then I was kind of dragging the team the whole way for the first couple times and get out of breath, and I'd stop and I'd say all right and go, and it was kind of a learning process with the dogs. It was something I was teaching them as we were going, you know. I'd say all right, we go, and then we'd stop, we'd take a little break, and then we regroup, and then we go, and it was just kind of this one foot in front of the other thing, you know. The dogs kind of gained more confidence. They were pretty scared there, actually, when we broke out a tree line, and they did that burrowing thing again and kind of shut down. But we got the system going, and we're making good time. And then as we're going up, I saw this light, and I thought it was a team coming back down, but it wasn't moving. It turns out it was Hugh Neff who was stuck up there. He'd been stuck up there for like 10 hours out in this driving wind and cold, and I got up to him, and he said, yeah. So one of the other mushers came by him and didn't even say a word. He just went right by him, which I didn't think was too cool. But you know, I said, how's it going? You know, do you need anything? And he said, yeah, my hands are kind of cold, and my dogs are. They stopped right here, and we just got about 200 more yards to go up to the saddle. And he said, I walked up there, and the wind has died down, but I just can't get my dogs up there. If I can get them up over that little saddle, I think they'll go just fine, because after that it goes slightly downhill on a side hill slope, and then turns and goes really steep up the last about 200-yard section, and then you're at the top of the mountain. But so I said, well, okay, I'll get around you and get up to your leaders, and I'll grab your leaders, and with my dogs next to your dogs, it'll probably perk your dogs up, and you get back on the sleds, and you push the sleds, and I'll pull the leaders, and I just kind of basically drug these two teams the last couple hundred yards up the mountain and got them going, and he was really thankful that I helped him. It was kind of exciting for me at the end of the race, because I came into mile 101, and I was the second team in there. And here, just 100 miles prior, I was running in 7th or 8th with way stronger teams in front of me and a tired dog team, and I was kind of, you know, bumming out and, you know, thinking, oh, I'm going to be 7th or 8th, and, you know, it's really easy to get kind of discouraged out there when things aren't going so well. And it's notorious for trouble at the end, like around these summits, that I kept saying, this race isn't over until it's over. Just keep going, just stay focused, just keep moving along, and just don't give up. And here I came into 101, and I'm in second place, you know, and it was really neat because once we got over the top, the dogs kind of got energized by that whole experience because I think it really was a confidence builder for them. Because, like I say, once we got out of the, at first they kind of shut down and they didn't want nothing to do with going up that mountain. Then we kind of worked this out as a team and we got to the top and I could see the dogs were energized. And we came flying into 101. I mean, all of a sudden I had a team that was really tired to a team that was just full of energy, and it was all in their head, And there, Sebastian Schnuller, who was the leader, was actually camped there. I saw his dogs resting, and it just hit me. I said, I have a chance to win this race, but it ain't going to happen if I take a break here. I got to just keep going. So I grabbed a bunch of stuff I needed and took off, and the team shot out of there, and we made pretty good time over there. But the last run into town was kind of slow because the dogs were tired from that push coming into Two Rivers. But we left. I actually got a time penalty because in all the flurry in 101, I forgot to sign out. That's a breach of the rules, and I just totally forgot about it, and I got a half-hour time penalty. I was thinking about other things. So I wound up actually, Dallas Seavey left ahead of me from Two Rivers after our mandatory layover by about 12 minutes, and then Sebastian left about a half hour behind me, and we were pretty slow leaving there. And those 8 dogs had done a lot of work. Their teams were much bigger, and they really put their heart into it, and they were just tired. And we got into Fairbanks okay, but those guys passed us, but I'm super proud of those dogs.